Yeah.
I don't know what's up with it.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
No.
Here.
Transitions.
We're here and we have Mitchell and Ed and Greg back. That was highly requested by lots and lots of people.
Yep.
So we were talking backstage about breeding, and Greg volunteered to start our conversation.
So we weren't broadcasting after all that, huh?
Yeah.
God, I raised
Nope.
the sweat, man.
You got a good test drive with that one.
Yeah.
Getting you warmed up.
Well, we were just talking about all the various topics that we were going to discuss today, and I said, well, do you have any specifics? And we said, well, not really, other than everybody should say something. And I said, well, I'll start it off with a broad overview that everything well kept, everything that's well fed and gets the conditions that it enjoys living in and does well in is going to breed. The breeding is one of the most fundamental things a fish wants to do. So if you're doing things right, the fish will follow you. There's no such thing as I did everything right and the fish isn't breeding. One of the big reasons why I get that from live bearer people is they'll say, it's been 3 months, everything's been perfect, everything's right, and I don't get a single spawn. And I'll say, yeah, but it's September, and they breed from March to June. And so you're going to have to wait until next spring before they breed again because your fish may be seasonal. Those kinds of things, may get in the way, but usually if you're doing things right, it'll breed for you. The fish will breed for you. I had a guy write me just recently. He was with some swordtails and he was wrestling for 2 years. He said couldn't get a spawn, so I had to make a number of changes to his setup. And he wrote me about 2 weeks ago, all excited that he's finally got young and he's all excited about it and happy about it. And I said, man, do whatever you need to do. Get yourself a notebook and write down exactly how your tank's doing right now at this moment. What's your temperature? What's your pH? What's your hardness? What's your nitrates? What's your nitrites? What's your ammonia at? What's your hardness? How much light are you giving them? What the light period is? What your water change schedule is? And then if down the road, which will inevitably happen, your spawns and things will start to dip. You won't know why, and you can go back to those notes to find out where the way you're keeping your tanks has evolved or swayed, moved away from the way that you had them at that time when you were successful. And oftentimes you have to do things that you added that you thought were improvements are actually setting you back as far as the breeding of the fish is concerned. I put a bunch more motion into the water because it's a higher oxygenation fish. They might not want to breed in those in those conditions. So anyway, and the last thing I mentioned was that also, besides writing down what my water conditions are, I always pay attention to where in the room the tank is located, because fish definitely spawn for me in various places. So, which tells me that this is where they do their best. Fish will thrive pretty much anywhere, but when they really are doing well and they're really happy, they'll breed for you. And if they're breeding, they like to be on a low rack, like to be on a high rack, like to be near a window, whatever it is, I take a note of that, and then I keep that species in that circumstance, from then on out. And that's made life a lot easier for me. I had a spot on the top of a rack. I had 255 set up 6 feet above the ground, just under the ceiling, and the Montezumas loved it. And they bred like crazy there. But I couldn't keep them in my little alcove area, which was a little bit cooler, and it was down at eye level. They never survived there. And same fish room, same water, different central systems, but the same water. My Montezumas were gangbusters in one place and didn't do well in the other. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why that was. And there's subtle things that the fish pick up on that you might not notice. For me, it was the amount of water being pumped up into the tanks because it's all going through PVC, being pushed by pumps. Higher water level allows less flow, and that suited them better than the heavier flow in the eye level tanks in my alcove area. So those are just some of the things that you can do to get breeding happening.
One thing I'll add to that, Greg, is I also take a picture of the tank, because a lot of different kinds of fish, it's not just like parameters, but it's environmental setup. So with like cories, there are some cories that will breed they spawn at a hanging spawning mop up near the surface. But if you actually drop it too low, they won't actually breed. Some of them need the mop to actually touch the substrate while, the substrate they won't breed on. So, at the same time, taking a picture of the environment, so you know what it looks like of the successful is also.
You're cutting in and out, Mitchell.
Yeah, a little bit.
The mic faded.
Oh,
There you go, buddy. That's better.
okay. How about now?
That's
There
better.
you go.
There you go.
Okay. So what I was saying is taking a picture of the tank so you know the environmental setup too, because some fish the environment is actually important to them. Like some cories, if you have a spawning mop that is a little bit too far above the substrate, they won't spawn in it. They need it to actually be sitting on the edge of the substrate. So it's like just a couple of inches difference. It can actually affect some fish. So taking a picture of what the actual tank looks like when you're successful also gives you more history to know, hey, oh, and maybe that's the difference that I missed.
Yeah, the pictures also help with a date
Yeah.
to keep track of eggs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think another thing a lot of people need to consider is there are a lot of people that attempt breeding that don't. I think water parameters and quality food run hand in hand. And if you ask someone, what's your water parameters? Well, I don't know. So it's good to keep that book and a record of all of that. But another thing, and this kind of ties in with Goodeids, and I'm sure Greg will agree with me. Most Goodeids, once they hit a year and a half to 2 years, they slow down. You're going to get your best drops of fry. I have had young Goodeids here produce at 4 to 5 months. So when they're getting to that time, they'll slow down. There's a biological clock in all of them. And my Antonius toweri breed like clockwork, starting around now, and they'll go till April. And no matter where I put them in the room, it's like this biological clock. So I think that's a factor too. But just because they're a live bear doesn't mean, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling with live bears, but just because they're a live bear doesn't mean in a few weeks you're going to have something. And that applies a lot with egg scatterers too. If I told you how I do my egg scatterers, you'd be like, what? People can't believe what I do with them, that it works for me. But I think one of the things too, you need to know what's going on in your tank. Pictures, I think that's a great idea. A journal, definitely. And a lot of people, they want an answer. Well, if those of us that have been doing this for many years, we like to try to get a good idea of what's going on in the tank before we make comments. So that's where people have to do a little bit of the legwork themselves. And then if they reach out to us, we can guide them through it a little bit. So it just depends on what you're breeding. Prime example is the Odessa barbs I'm working with Greg. They don't really start coloring out till about, I think mine started coloring out at 10 months old. So you have to give them time. Some fish require longer time before they come into condition than others. And I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding or misconception. You can just put them in the tank and they're ready to go. My Odessas, it took them 12 months before they even attempted to try to spawn.
Really? One thing I want to mention is that the Goodeids, some of the species, some more than others, crocodons are bad at this, and so are the Skifias, but they'll get into the spring of their 4th year and they die. They all die about the same time. But they stop breeding usually right around 2 years, 2 years, 2 1/4. So I've had tanks. The thing when I first came into the hobby, I would go to shows and people would want tequilas. And so people at the shows were selling these tequilas. They'd all buy the really big ones and really large, and they'd bring them home and they wouldn't breed. So they had a reputation for being difficult to spawn for the longest time. And it's because people were selling them fish they knew weren't going to breed anymore. And so I've had tanks that have looked at for 2 years, not gotten a single drop out of them, of the tequilas. But when you first start sexing out, you got to get them spawning right away.
Yeah.
It's a similar problem with rams. People don't realize that rams do the same kind of thing. It's a cichlid. You would think that they would be able to actually be fecundant through their whole life almost, but a young ram is going to produce the most eggs, and it will actually drastically tail off. So when a lot of people buy pairs of rams, a lot of the times those are actually towards the end of their actual breeding cycle.
Mhm.
So that's also one of the problems that people have with rams, is that a lot of times they get them too old. And you wouldn't think it looking at them, but they are way more fertile when they're just barely able to actually start breeding.
Mhm.
Experienced that too many times.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I experienced that too many times with rams and angels.
Yep. People want the big, beautiful pairs, but a lot of times the pairs are towards the end of their actual breeding cycle.
If I can interject something about this really quickly, people write me every day, and I get people writing me oftentimes, and they'll say, "Where can I get really good quality rams? I want to breed them and I want to sell them." Or where can I get really good quality this, that, or the other? Fish that are sold in pet stores, but they want something better than what's sold in pet stores. I've had some of the fish farms in Florida approach me, and I've learned a little bit about how they do things. If I raise something up like my Odessa barbs, I've had 2 farms come to me, they want my Odessas. So my Odessas, my best pictures of my best Odessas, they look spectacular. So that's what the fish farms will see, and they'll buy them from me. I ship them up. So then they breed them by the zillions in the wholesale, and they ship them out to stores. And then people see them in the stores, and they're kind of washed out, and they're like, "Oh, these are kind of good fish," and all this. But they look like nothing like the original fish that left my fish room. And whenever you go in, like for rams, whoever is selling them or supplying them to the fish stores, to the distributors, probably had a really awesome looking fish. And they're usually, those breed stock are very high quality. So you can recreate that initial brood stock quality by buying fish from your pet store, pick your better individuals, and then within 2 to 3 generations, by picking out your best fish, you can then return and have some of the best quality rams or whatever you're looking for. Black skirt tetras were a favorite of mine, things like that. So you can always get good quality fish at your pet store, but you might have to breed them for a generation or 2 and select for the best individuals to get that line back on its feet. So anyway, I wanted to stick that in there because people write, always looking for better fish. I'm like, they exist. You can get them. You might have to, get back to them because they're not.
And I think the thing to remember, it's not immediate gratification. I'm sure these gentlemen on each side of me will agree. When you're breeding, it's a long-term situation. You set a goal for yourself and you work from that. It's not immediate gratification. You can't purchase this perfect fish and then recreate it because there's too many variables in your fish room. So what I have learned over time is decide what you want to focus on with these fish, focus it from there, and it takes time and it's not immediate gratification. So that's what I've learned. Greg has told me so many times, and it's true because I'm now in my 7th year with Goodeids. When you see pictures of your Goodeids when you first got them till years later as they have adapted and fully acclimated to your water, it's a total, like the difference. My Dowadrioi are now vividly colored. And it took them a while to get that, but it came from, I feel what it is stability in the tank, quality food, and I took the time, and I am selectively pulling what I want for them. For me, it's structure, and that color developed over time. I wasn't just really looking for that, but as the fish get accustomed to your aquariums over time, they will do better. It's not, so I always say it's not immediate gratification.
And like I admitted last time, the more times that fish change hands with each generation, when someone breeds them and you go to different water qualities, the line is deteriorating.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then you end up losing them in the hobby.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how some of Mitchell's super rares. I'm sure you've got some of them that have been in a few generations. Are you seeing a little bit of difference? The ones you just posted a while back, I keep forgetting the name, the platypus. The ones.
Zaccoplatypus. Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're now starting on a couple generations in with them, correct?
Oh, no. I have just got a young from a first spawn. Well, a couple of first spawns from them. So they're not large enough to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, I would be curious to see what transpires with them over time too. Is over time we all know that every organism can adapt to situations. So I'm curious to see what would transpire with those species over time. Like if there is something that it's different in your tanks, your setups, and your water and what you're feeding, and see over time what that does. Because I think that was a big part with what I've been doing. I'm noticing that even with some of my egg scatterers. So.
Yeah.
What do you guys do if you have a species that won't breed for you?
Move on.
That's not
If
what
it doesn't like my fish room, it doesn't belong.
It depends on what it is. Like
Mhm,
there are
I agree.
some that are rare enough that I will still keep trying, because like in my case, quite a few of the fish, like a lot of cories, can live for like 14, 15 years easily. So I have, and they can still be like sexually active most of that time. So I do have chances later on. So if it is something that's really rare or something that I'm like attached to, then I will still keep it in like a what I call the tanks that are like the Island of Misfit Toys. They're the community tanks that are no longer necessarily dedicated to breeding, but eventually sometimes I do pull groups out of those again and try them again. But if it's something that's not like I've got some kind of attachment to for some reason, then yeah, I will move it on.
I laugh because I do the same thing. You know, if after two or 3 years of trying and I'm just limping along and I'm never really getting the numbers up, then I don't continue to keep it. But that was the way with the Xiphophorus birchman eye for me. I would love to have that fish and keep it going. They're a gorgeous fish, but they just never did well. Same goes for the Clemensae, the Xiphophorus Clemensae. Yeah.
And then there are some that like it's odd that the fish that that is my favorite fish that I have ever kept, I intentionally don't keep anymore. It is the Tanganyikan killifish, because it's an amazing fish. And the problem is that my water is really soft, really low TDS. There's almost nothing in it. So recreating Tanganyikan setup is generally like I can do it, but with my auto water change system,
It's constantly in flux.
It's kind of annoying. And the fish are resilient enough when they're young for that to not be a problem. So they go through like a cycle. They go through when they're super small, when they're just hatched up to about 1.5 inches or so, they're actually so delicate that like if you net them out, you'll break their spine. So you have to like dip them out with cups and things like that to move them. Then in that 1.5 or so to maybe 2.5 inch range or so, they're actually really stable and you can like ship them at that time. When they get further up after that, when they get old enough, water parameters actually really do start to affect them. So I could never keep them successfully as long as they should be, because as they got older, they became more sensitive to my water not being real Tanganyikan style water. So I ended up actually moving my group on to someone else that actually was like very dedicated Tanganyikan person kind of thing. So maybe someday in the future, I'll change the way I'm doing things, and I will have some intentionally like hard waters that like really, really Tanganyikan specific sort of water, and I'll get them back at that time. But right now, I don't keep the fish that I actually love the most in the hobby, because I know that it will have problems when it gets old.
Yeah. Hey, hey, gentlemen, do you mind if I answer a question here? And Greg, you might be able to chime in on this too. Budget Bonsai had asked, how do large swordtails and godiots do in deep, low-tech, low-maintenance setups? First off,
Deep
about that,
substrate.
deep substrate. So I tell a lot of people godiots require high oxygen. So I personally, just from my opinion, from what I've dealt with godiots, it depends on what you're talking about. Low tech. Low tech can be so many things. Are you oxygen? But one thing I can tell you, godiots need high oxygen. And Greg with the swords, Greg has a little bit more with more knowledge with swords. What do you feel? The swords?
That's an interesting question because that's exactly what I've always been about, is doing things very, very low tech. I use the 1960s style box filters in all my tanks.
Mm-hmm.
They cost nothing.
Me too.
I use a minimal, if any, substrate in the tanks. I use enough just to provide a nitrifying bacteria surface area with maybe one pebble thick layer of gravel. I use only live plants. So in my opinion, the low tech way of going about it, a big part of your filtration or your water changes. So that's how they do best. You know?
Yeah, I agree. It just depends on what a person considers low tech. Low tech can mean so many things, but that's what stood out with me. Just like with Goodeids, Goodeids need high oxygen in their water. If there's not a high concentration of oxygen in the water, they're not.
All the live bears are that way. Yeah, all the live bears are that way. They come from fast moving streams,
right,
where the water is constantly being replenished. You put them in a tank where you're not doing a water change maybe but once a month, you're going to run into problems.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That also dovetails with the cooler temperature water, because cooler temperature water will hold more oxygen than warmer water too.
Correct. And that's what we were discussing a little while ago.
Can I ask, you guys all have fish rooms. Can I ask you a question and I'll butt out? But it deals with this exact issue. Every fall, my tanks get crystal clear for about 2 weeks, more so than I normally with the amount of work that I do. And then every spring, they get really cloudy for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, usually around just as things start to warm up. And it took me about 5 years to realize it's because when I go from summer to fall, the temperatures go down. So the bacteria improve because the oxygen level goes up and they get the water really clean. But then in the spring, the organic load is too much for the bacteria that die down because the water is warming. And then I go through about a 2 week period for the bacteria to accommodate it. And then I'm good for the fall.
Same
Do you guys see that?
Same here. Same here.
Not so much here.
Yeah, I
maintain a pretty tight temperature.
Yeah, and you're on a well right outside your door too. So
yeah, I haven't really noticed that personally, but I intentionally, for what I'm doing, I don't keep very heavily stocked tanks, just because like a lot of what I have is like super rare and doesn't like produce much, and I intentionally spread the fry out into really low population tanks to try and make sure that I don't actually like lose an entire spawn of something that spawns a couple of times a year. That would be awful. So I don't generally have that. I haven't noticed that. No.
I guess it comes down to how much temperature swing there is between the seasons.
Yeah.
I'm in the basement with one wall's all windows, and so I can swing 6 degrees between the winter and the summer. So that's probably what it is.
So this is a recently purpose-built fish room. It averages between 82 and 85 degrees in year round.
Oh my goodness!
Now,
I'd be dying.
One other thing is because of what I keep generally mostly Corys, I actually intentionally keep my room's temperature cooler than most people. So like I actually shoot for maybe the mid 70s or so, hoping that my lowest tanks in the racks are like at the high 60s, maybe 70s, maybe the low 70s. And anything that needs any more temperature, I will put a heater in. But the majority of my room or my basement is like mid 70s. So maybe I'm actually also running a cooler temperature than you guys do, which also makes it a lot more comfortable to work in.
Sure.
Yeah.
On average, I do 74, but for a few months in the winter, I will let it dip down a little bit so that they can go through give my Goodeids a rest. And I let it dip down to about 68, which means the lowest tank is 65, and they seem to tolerate that. So when I do that natural cycle with them, first off, it gives the females time to regroup. They're not perpetually breeding. And since I've started doing that, I notice my fry are a lot healthier, and my adults, when I slowly bring that temperature up again in the spring, it triggers them.
My temperature swings about the same as yours is, Ed. But I have to, because of the number of Gudeians here, I really make a point that I try never to let my water get above 77 to 78 degrees.
On average, I'm 75. That's about the highest I go.
Okay, so we're actually about the same. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I aim for about 73 to 74 degrees.
That's about where I'm shooting for too.
Yeah.
Stephen, nothing that I'm aware of needs it to be warm for cories. Every cory I have ever dealt with, mid 70s and lower is perfect for them. I know people will keep them hotter because some of them can be hotter, but you don't have to.
I remember when I was a kid, man, you go to the pet store and you'd ask them, they'd always tell you they kept their tanks at 80 degrees.
Yep.
So for years and years, I kept my swordtails and all that at 80 degrees. And that's the worst thing. Then what's even worse is then when you find out that they really live around 72, 73 degrees, is then to go home and take your heaters off, and they all get ick, and you wonder why, But people don't pay enough attention about temperature. Has always been one of my weakest variables. You always have to keep an eye on temperature.
Yeah.
Like with Jeff, he's breeding a lot of Rams and Angels. So
Where are you located,
Yeah.
Jeff?
Northern Wisconsin.
You know Steve Judy or Ted Judy?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I know the
okay.
name.
Where's he located out of?
So Ted is basically out of the game now, isn't he? He
He is. He has pretty much gotten out of the hobby. Yeah. But he and Mike Helwig had a thing going there for breeding and stuff, and he was well known in the hobby. And so I believe he was big in the Madison Club.
Okay. I got into the Madison Club just as it was ending, essentially.
Oh, really? I didn't. The Madison Club has ended. Is there a club to replace
Oh,
it?
yeah. No. It died with the cyclic club deal that they did. The last Cataclysm was the end of it.
Yeah.
They just couldn't financially recover from it.
Oh, wow.
budget bonds. I don't do anything specifically to enhance evaporation. I actually try to decrease evaporation because evaporation creates humidity in the room, which is in my basement, and I want to actually not have it too humid because I don't want to destroy my house, kind of thing, over time.
don't want the black mold.
Yeah. So what I actually do is not shoot for evaporation, but I actually just lower the temperature of the room to make sure that it doesn't even get that high.
I kind of agree with Steven on this.
So my room is essentially heated by a dehumidifier.
Yeah.
And that's it. It runs around 30% humidity in here. And
That's
it maintains the room around, usually around 82, 85, right in that window. Depends on if the door is open or not. The lower tanks on the outside wall still run in the low 70s, so without any additional heat on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one advantage also is that my basement is an unfinished basement. So where the bathroom was stubbed out, I have an exhaust fan. So I opted for a really high power bathroom exhaust fan so I can evacuate a lot of air, which actually helps me. Sometimes I'll actually intentionally cool the room down by opening the door, even in the wintertime, and kick the exhaust fan on, and I can drop the temperature of the room pretty quick.
I have a 10-inch Canadian can fan, one of the big long cans, and it's mounted on my dryer outlet on the basement. And that sucker can crank. It was bought from a hydroponics hydroponics place that sold to the weed industry, and they had a big sale on it, and I was able to get it for $300. But that sucker just keeps my humidity low and all that. Yeah, and then I have it hooked up to a humidifier so it goes on and off. But it usually runs 24/7, particularly in the summer.
Yep.
I am working on a small airbrush booth in the corner here, and that's direct vent outside. So that's my exhaust fan, is that little mini booth.
Mm-hmm. Wow, we're great. That's the way to go. I remember because I live in Denver, and it's like one of the driest parts of the country. And I remember trying to buy a dehumidifier.
Yeah.
They just kind of look at you funny, like, what?
Yep. I told me I had to go to the East Coast and have it shipped if it was going to happen.
I'd have to bring one with me next time I come up there. I'm surprised you
Now,
can't.
guys, if,
Mine's running right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, has there ever been a
Yes.
species that you guys found that was really hard to breed? And did you eventually get it to breed?
I'll go. I am currently working on a quarry that I have still not successfully got to breed. If you're familiar with Pantanalensis, the pants quarry, so those guys come from a place in South America where they actually have a dry season. Like they're from if you're familiar with South America, the Mato Grosso area, like when it actually gets into the dry season, it gets dry. It's this huge area that the water level decreases. The water basically becomes like nasty water. They'll live in that for like 4 months or so. And that's part of their trigger. So I actually have to do that to what is actually, if unfortunately, like some of these things are like, it hurts you because some of these things, like weird, scary things, are expensive and not very common fish. At least in Pantanalensis, you can actually get them, but like triggering them, I started the 1st of October. I turned off water changes. They have not had a water change since. When I got back from the OCA, because I'm now not traveling for a couple of months, I put a heater in their tank. Like I'm jacking their temperature up, minimal feeding, no water changes. I'm not expecting to do a water change until the end of January for them. And I've done it before with a less time on it and was not successful. Hoping this time that when I'm ready to bring them out of the dry season, that I will actually have like some storms so I can take advantage of decreased air pressure, them triggering, start doing cool water changes and bring them out of that. But Pantanalensis, I still not got them to successfully breed.
So when you refill, do you go almost pure RO?
No. So
No.
for those guys, I might this time. Most of the quarries that need a dry season don't need a big dry season, like a few weeks or maybe a month or so is fine. Like you can get by with like a month for Equus, maybe a little bit less with Equus. Most of them don't need that, but I've tried Pantanalensis a couple of times. I'm on my 3rd attempt at them right now, and it is kind of annoying when your attempt is like 4 months long, and if it didn't work, you then need to let them rest and then try it again. That's like you might get 2 tries a year out of them.
Yeah. With your tap water, what are you running for TDSs and stuff and pH?
Once it settles, pH is about 6.3, and TDS is maybe 70 or so. So, like in this simulated dry season, like TDS gradually goes way up because nothing's pulling any of the water out. So it gets nastier and nastier over time. Like the tank, when you're looking in the racks and you've got clear water, nasty water, clear water, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, I know that out of the tap for me, it's 5.9 and 18 to 32 TDS.
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
Wow.
So
You should bottle that.
Right.
Having it is so much easier to start with nothing in the water and add things versus having way too much and having to remove it.
Yeah.
That's me. I have what I call liquid calcium.
Yep.
It's good for my goodeids, but that's just about it.
Yeah, it does
Yeah.
play into what I do with my fish room though, because I don't like messing with my water, so I just run with, naturally acidic fish.
Yeah, it was unintentional for me to actually like South American and Southeast Asian sorts of things that just happened to work with my water. So
Yeah.
it just kind of magically worked out for me.
That's one of the things I tell people usually is you're always going to be, in my opinion, more successful at breeding if you're working with fish that will work with your water. So I always tell people, get water samples, decide, and then go from there. A lot of people want to pick these really difficult fish to breed, and then they've got to go through 30 different stages to get their water where it is. You're going to be more successful if you find species that already work in your water and build from there. So, I tried for 3 years breeding angels here and RO, all of that, did everything, and they're just not working in my water. Greg can tell you the Volifera. I had Volifera from him. They did well when I lived in Pittsburgh. When I brought them here, they got the skin infections and stuff and all that. So there's just certain fish that just don't do well in your water, and it's a lot easier to work with fish that are already pretty acclimated into your water. So that's a prime example. I wish I had water like that because I'd love to be able to work with some of the Asiatics and the ones that are in softer water. That's just not an option with me for some reason. Even when I'm doing a 4 and 5 stage RO, I'm still not getting any type of desired effect that I want with them. So I've just decided I'm going to stick with what's hard water, and because of the fish that I do, it's perfect.
Well, and I happen to think that the assumption that we can change the water and the fish won't know the difference is probably a flawed premise to begin with. The fish know you're screwing up their water. And I tried raising discus when I lived in California. Water would come out of the tap at 8.4. So I was buying all this discus buffer and all this stuff, and the fish would just laugh at me, So I just realized that, you're like exactly like Ed says, it's best to find something that's going to adapt to your. And I do so many water changes here now and all that to go through the process of trying to, acclimate everything that they get would be far too much trouble.
Yeah. You can drive yourself crazy doing that stuff. And if you're doing water changes like you should when you're breeding, it's going to be hard to keep that maintained. And here, I've told you, my pH is a 7.8, and TDS can fluctuate between 275 and 300. But I have well water, and it's just there's a lot of mineralization in it. So for me, it's just I have a RO system. I've tried angels, I've tried rams, and there's just something with my water here. So I've learned to accept those just aren't species I can work with here.
I forgot I was going to say, yeah. No, it's you just got to go with what you're handed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, the one thing I was going to say is a lot of people write me about their water. If you're having problems with your water and you have really outlier levels, then I'm sure everybody here would agree. Before you all of a sudden decide to go to the store and buy all kinds of additives and try to find ways to make water the way you want it, age the water for a while in a thing with an air stone, and then keep an eye on how it ages. You may find out you're going to have entirely different water qualities in a week than you had coming out of the tap. And sometimes you may need to set up a reservoir of a garbage can, plastic garbage, 40-gallon garbage can with a sump pump in it, and then have your water changes sit in that for a couple of days before you put them into your tanks, where you can then make it healthy. Yeah.
And when you're
go ahead, Ed.
No, I'm sorry, buddy. And then if you're using chemicals all the time, you're not getting that stability. It's up and down, and that's more stressful for the fish than if you have a parameter that's slightly higher or slightly lower. The key is stability. So like people get pH up, pH down and stuff. There are natural ways you can naturally buffer them that will keep it a little bit more stable. So I get a kick with all these potions and concoctions in the hobby. And people are adding this and adding that. You're driving yourself nuts. There's no stability in the tank, and all you're doing is creating a more stressful environment. I've seen fish that over time accustomed to a higher pH and would spawn. A lot of the key to all of it is stability. So a lot of that stuff, there are natural ways that you can buffer if you need to. So, but Greg, you've been here to my home, So I have a well, and although I don't have sulfur in my water, I have sulfur gas. So I have to aerate my water for a minimum of 24 hours, sometimes 48, to gas that off before I put it in my system. Even the filtration system that we purchased to remove that, we still have that a little bit. And what I have found, by aerating it out before I do water changes, 24 hours minimum, it does a lot better for me. So that's something to consider too, is just getting stable water. And that's what I do now, which kind of puts a wrench in my spoke for when I want to do automatic water change, but we're going to be doing a variant with that I want to purchase some big vats, but I have to stabilize my water for a minimum of 24 hours.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah.
So,
Now, Rack had a question here real quick. Best swordtail hybrid for longest tail and best orange-black color.
Got to be careful with them super long tails because they won't breed for you.
Who said that? Well,
I've had my ups and downs with this.
only because it's an old fish.
Yeah, I've had ups and downs with that.
Yeah, people write me and say, "Can you send me a swordtail but make sure it has a really long fish, a long sword?" And I'll say, "What? You want an old fish? No, that's not going to breed for you."
Yeah.
As far as that question goes, you're talking about domestic versus wild. I think Ed and I are more wild types. And so the domestic types, I don't know if people selling specific strains of the domestic types. I mean, the longest sword is going to be those that have any Montezuma influence.
mm-hmm.
But, if you get a good quality Hillary with the orange and black color, the sword's going to change in size between various males, how big they are. In a batch of 30, you're going to have maybe 4 or 5. Well, let's see, in a batch of 30, you might probably have 7 or 8 that might be early maturing. Ed can tell me if he disagrees, but they'll sex out earlier and they won't get all that big. And then you're right, you toss them. And out of that 30, you're probably going to have 7 or 8 that are at the other end, and they'll get especially huge and have especially long swords, and that's what you want. And those are the ones you use for breeders. And then the rest of them will be midland. There's no such thing as buying a species and they all have the same size sword, I don't think, because they'll all grow at different rates based on what temperature they're at, the food they receive, all that sort of business, the oxygenation they receive, the resources they have access to.
Anyone can produce a quality fish. What I always tell people, find something that you're looking for and build on it. So swordtails with a long sword, anyone, if knowing what to do, how to proceed with breeding them and takes the time, you can do that, but it's through selective breeding. Most swordtails that are out there now have the really small, people aren't focusing on that. So that could be something you focus on, and through selective breeding, build that up. But it's so, like, no disrespect to the gentleman who had that question, but that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes you don't have that option. You have to create that for yourself. So that's where, like, there's no such thing as finding that perfect fish and then just passing it on. Many of these fish that we're seeing in the hobby that are really good specimens have taken time over a long time over selective breeding.
Well, also too, Ed, you might all of the fish that have the bright orange color, they've all been crossed with platies in the 60s.
They're a hybrid.
Cut their sword length in half. So if you're going to find an especially long sword that really interests you, then you've got to go to the wild swords.
Yeah,
because they'll always have longer swords than the domestic.
Even if you cross a wild sword back in, but that's basic genetics anyway, which a lot of people don't follow. Is when they're working with domestic variations, is that every so often they're not putting the nominate back into the species line, and that's where a lot of the genetics bottom out. So yeah, that might be the option.
Go with wild Hillary. And people have been writing me. I shipped over 1,000 Rio Otapa Hilleries out to the hobby over a period of about 7 or 8 years, and now people can't find them in the hobby, which really saddens me because I shipped so many of them out. They're a gorgeous fish and they're huge. I mean, I had males that got to 6¼ inches, 6.5 inches from nose tip to sword tip. So if you can find them, they're out there. But yeah, the wild Hellerized, even the good Hellerized, man, they'll get monstrous. The my eye is big.
I've been telling people, if you could get your hands on some good my eye, grab them, because they're disappearing in the hobby.
Yep.
And I really like them because they're a little different. It's like you've said, they like to be close knit. They don't need a lot. You don't want to tighten them in, but they're used to being, and they've been fairly easy to breed. So, but
there's another one I shipped over 1,000 of out to the hobby, but now people just killed them off. So
that's what I try to tell people is, like, with the species that we work with, it's not just producing them and moving on. It's working with them over years. But I'm sure this would apply to Mitchell too, is when you're working on these lines, it's not just he's working with stuff that it's very difficult to find, very difficult to breed, to spawn. So it's one of these things. It's not breed, move on, breed, move on. You have to establish something and set a goal for what you're doing with them. And a lot of the fish, we've talked about this, Greg, that you used to work with. Some of them you can't even find now.
Yeah.
And like with the Poecilia volifera, which I was so upset when I couldn't keep them here because they're my favorite fish. Nice. And there are not too many people working with them, or there are people claiming they have them, and they're a hybrid with Latipina, and that's something else you have to watch too. So, but that's the key to it, is taking the time to build them. You have the volifera? Yeah. I got mine from Greg. They were doing great for me in Pittsburgh, and the minute I moved south, and the water was so much different, I was having issues with skin infections for them, and so I just had to give them up, and it killed me.
That's a tank I try to feed 3 times a day, and I think I'm just going to put an auto feeder on it because I'm not here. I'm not here all day, and I
used to feed them 7 to 10 times a day. Yeah.
I thought that was about how much, and that's the thing. For them to get that size, they need that food, and they need good water changes and water. And from what Greg has always told me, they're prone to skin infections and stuff, and that's my parameters were fine. There was no high nitrate, no nothing, but there was something in the water that was triggering them. I don't know if it was stress, but they were just getting infections. And I just finally decided to find a place where they'd do better, and I moved them on. I still have access if someone needed them. But I just thought it was inhumane for me to continue to try working with them when they weren't.
Most universities that keep them in large quantities for study or whatever, they'll use medicinal dose of salt in the water, not because they need salt like everybody has come to believe.
Yeah, they're fresh
because
water.
It suppresses the bacterial activity that causes the fin occlusions and the stuff on the skin and all the infections and all that. And that was a fish. I mean, I loved them as well. I had about 10 tanks of them, and I sold a zillion of them. But they're the fish that kept me up at night, because you go down every 2-3 weeks. I'd have to salt the tank to get rid of infections that were starting up, because I knew whoever I shipped them to wasn't going to use salt, so I didn't keep them in salt here.
Right. Yeah. I think that was one of my most challenging fish, and they were breeding for me, but I couldn't maintain them over the long haul. So I had
For those who don't know what the Poecilia volifera is, that's the giant sailfin molly. It's the logo of the American Library Association. Yes. So for those who don't picture what the fish look like, they're spectacular. There's no question.
When a male is displaying for a female, there's nothing better to look at.
Oh man, for me it was like when I get a male displaying, when I have company come over, someone come to see the fish room, and then the fish get excited and they'll start displaying. I'm like, nothing better than that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first time I saw him in your room, you had your big male, and he was displaying.
Was he?
But the up and coming male was trying to steal his thunder.
Yeah.
And that was cool to stand there and watch.
Yeah, they're a cool fish.
Yeah.
And that's a fish that is disappearing from our hobby. So what I would say is there's got to be people out there that the water is perfect, that they're home. Find a fish that does well in your water, and it goes the same if they're not. So I mean, it killed me to have to get rid of mine, but they are doing much better now, and they're producing. So someone I know is maintaining them. So even though I can't maintain them anymore, I found a safe haven for them, so the bloodline can continue.
Well, Azul Aquatics 20 on Gmail has been keeping them and selling them since I stopped selling them. My pH is 7.4 and I'm 90 ppm out of the tap. So to keep them, I had to keep crushed coral in the tanks because it was too soft. So it's the same kind of thing. Over time, it just got to be too much of a headache to keep on top of what they really wanted, and they weren't getting it from my water.
Yeah, and see, mine comes out of the tap at like 7.8 and about 350 TDS.
Our water is similar, Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah, ours is pretty similar.
Do you have well water?
No, that's city water.
Wow.
Well, I'm on an aquifer.
Okay.
Mine's 7.2 and 122. Yes.
Yeah, but you're over there where it rains. I'm over here where we blow dust.
Right. Now, what about you, Jeff?
On like the fish I'd like to keep, or
Yeah,
rams and angels, really.
That's been difficult to breed, and did you ever get it to breed?
It's more timing, and then something unfortunate happens or something along those lines. Because I mean, if you're working with a Cory or a Pleco, some of them take a while to grow up before they even spawn. And with the building of the fish room and the move into it, and the lack of power last winter during a ice storm, there was slow losses.
I'm still working on my hearts when I've yet to get the scarlet batis to breed.
That's a difficult one. I'm sure Mitchell's probably bred that one.
I've never done the scarlet, but I have done Batis assismensis, which is actually a big batis, which is it doesn't seem like it's a batis. It'll get like 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches long, and it actually is like more like a cichlid. It comes out and greets you, unlike any other batis I've ever dealt with that like runs and hides when it sees you.
They all run and hide.
So, like, I'll walk by a tank, and these guys will all come up to the front and just watch me as I'm going by, which is so weird for a batis. But yeah, they're like the big batis, and those guys, I've done those before. I've never gotten into the little secretive ones like the scarlets and the black tigers and those sorts of things.
To me, the ones that are more comfortable in the aquarium are going to be easier to breed.
That's why that tank is not in this room. It's in another room where I'm not walking in and out all day long messing with them.
Yeah.
And you won't show anybody.
It might even be a good idea. In order to get them to spawn, you may even have to cover out the aquarium. I've done that where you take newspaper material on the sides and cover it out. I did that when I was doing neons. A lot of people think neons need to be really hot, and you know that their eggs are photosensitive. And I was spawning neons at 72 degrees, and people are like, "Oh, you've got to spawn them at 78, 82."
Well,
nope. To spawn the cold water, and I left that, and literally all I was doing was putting RO in, mixing it down to get it to buffer down, cover the aquarium, I did spawning mops, let them spawn in that, and left it dark, and then just fed them from. But there's always something, and I found the ones that are really shy, if I blacken out the aquarium or put newspaper or something around, because I'm always walking around in my fish room, it helped them out a great deal. So that's probably one of the things to do with the bass.
I saw Mitchell did that too, and wasn't that successful for you? That tank you had blacked off?
Yeah, that's a fairly common technique with like tetras.
Mm-hmm.
I might try that. It's in a spot where it'd be easy for me to do.
Well, most of my tanks, I let all the sidewalls grow up algae on them, and just let it have the faintest look through. Because with my rams, it helps to build the relationships and the angels, because then they can board against each other.
Yeah.
But as it gets thicker towards the back, then they can't see each other as much and then get some reprieve from each other.
I think we actually talked about it last time, but like I intentionally no longer paint the sides of my tanks because I want the option to be able to actually have the fish be able to see across to the next tank. If I don't want them to see, then I can just put a divider to block.
Cardboard, yeah. I do that if I have to, but for the most part, the algae's thick enough that one stays toward the front, one stays toward the back. They forget about each other for a while. I usually spawn them all toward the front, though, so they can see each other, and it does make them brood better, for me at least.
No, that's
same with the pistos.
There's a lot of things that people believe that they actually are like really strong pair bonds on a lot of fish, but I think that they're more like that just because in the hobby we're keeping them in the same tank, so they think that's their options. They'll pair bond with that one because that's the one that's there. So in the wild they make a weaker pair on a lot of fish, but if you give them something to like bond against, it will actually make them generally a better pair.
Yeah, I've had to remove a female or a male from a tank and swap it with the one next door because they bonded through the glass better than they did within the tank.
Yep.
I do that with my Glydians. Yeah, what I found, I personally feel Cracodons establish a hierarchy, and the male. So when I'm breeding Cracodons, I'll do 2 males to 4 females in a 29-gallon aquarium and give them that space. What I have found, the male, in my opinion, the males will bond more with one of the females. Now, of course, they'll go out around the other females, but he has that one female he always picks. And I've been seeing this now ever since I started working with Cracodons. And the reason I put extra males in is to create that competition, because sometimes if they're the only guy on the block, they get a little lazy. If I put another male in, there's that competition, and I get a lot of that. But that's how I've been breeding a lot of, especially my Cracodons, and I've been having a lot of success. My Los Pinos right now downstairs, I'm probably ringing out about 50 juveniles. That seems to be really a positive thing to do with the Los Pinos. And from what a lot of people have been telling me in the ALA, there's just start producing the numbers. I said, try that. People put a male in a tank and a female, and boom, that's it. It's so much more than that, and that's with any fish. Like Jeff said, he's had fish bond through glass and stuff. And sometimes I personally feel if you allow the fish to choose each other instead of just popping them together, I've had more success with spawning or breeding.
Yeah. I usually try to do that in one of my grow out tanks. I kind of let them pick each other, and then I'll try to net them both at the same time because, I mean, occasionally they have differential markings, but a lot of times they don't.
Yeah. I've been doing that with a lot of my Glydians, especially the Cracodons. And everyone's like, how are you breeding so many Cracodons? And I'm like, I'll tell you how I'm doing it. And I allow them to choose it. But I'm fortunate enough that I have enough stock that I can allow that to happen. And that's one of the things I tell people is when you're purchasing fish to start breeding them, don't just purchase one pair.
As a breeder, when you're selling
always
fish,
dies the next morning.
Yep, that's true.
When you're selling fish, though, you want to raise them up far enough to be able to see what you're selling, and also to know what you're going to work with for your next generation.
Yeah.
I mean, I've made the mistake of overselling.
Fish, they always sell everything as a pair. It's like, no, at least sell them as trios. Yeah. Because killifish females never last.
With the killies, I prefer to do like I really only keep the clown killies, so I prefer to have it like 4 females to 3 males or something like that.
Yep.
Because it gives at least one of them a break.
Yeah.
And then usually 2 males are sparring with each other, so normally there's more females on rest than not.
I don't want to say this, but in the first couple of years that I had Select Aquatics, I could never just send a pair of fish to somebody. They'd always get at least one extra, just so that you got a pair that was alive and healthy when you got them at home and got them in your tank.
Well, like with my pistos, I think I'd hose myself if I sold pairs because I'd end up with so many extra females.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's why I went to to 6 2 to 4 month unsexed. That's how I sell primarily most of mine, and then I always include an extra, and then that way you're in good shape.
Yeah, I think the 6 unsexed is the best way to go because they get to grow them out. They get them during their prime age.
Right.
And like I said earlier, when they're ready to start breeding or spawning, you're going to get your best drops then, as you would a lot, not picking on the auctions, but it's a lot of auctions. Oh, look at that big fish. Yeah. And that fish may be spent. So it's always better to get them young.
Yeah.
And
So,
grow them. And I think they adjust better to your water too than if they're an older fish.
So Jeff, you were saying you generally have more female pistos than males.
Yeah.
You know about the temperature ability to sex?
I do. So I've hatched rams out at 76, and it was almost 100% female batch. It was very unfortunate, and I learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more difficult in the fish room because of the overall temperature.
Sure.
But it's been about 2 to 3 females to 1 male. And part of that comes with the grow out sparring within the males. Sometimes they'll off the other male if you don't get them separated out fast enough.
So if people aren't familiar with what we're talking about, with some fish like a pistos, I have never actually experienced it with rams, but you're saying it was rams too. But like temperature can actually affect the sex ratio. At least with the pistos, if they're on, I think the temperature is right around the in theory even mix is right around 78 or so. If you're lower than that, you'll have more females. If you're above that, you'll have more males. So what I used to do when I was doing a pistos is I would actually intentionally keep multiples of the same species in 2 different tanks, one at the bottom of the rack and one at the top of the rack, so I could attempt to even out my sex ratios with them.
Yeah, it also helps to split your genetics too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was doing that for a while, but I really want to get away from the pistos, so it's more of I might keep 1 pair spawning.
Yep.
And shoot for more males because
that's what.
At LFS, the more males you have, it's easier to sell them.
The flashier ones are the ones that sell in LFS.
Yeah.
But that's exactly the same with the live bears. They do this exact same thing.
Yeah.
I learned that.
I know that I run hot on guppies, and I tend to get a lot more males than females. But when I was running a more average temperature, I had a problem with actually the female blue star endlers chasing the males out of the tank. And the same with my guppies. If they had a short enough tail that they could actually jump, they would jump out of the tank. The blue stars actually put a cup down in where they were always jumping out at and started putting them back in the tank after work.
That's hilarious.
They'd only jump in the one spot. But when I first found them, I found the first one like 10 feet away from the tank on the floor. I even made it a long way.
I learned that same lesson because I'm not a guppy guy, but I had the opportunity to get a Stan Schugel original line.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 6 months later down here because I'm trying to keep the temperature down for Gadias. I had 2 males and like 40 females. And it was like, well,
those males were happy.
Yeah.
And busy.
Like, that's not going to work.
But as bad as that was, it was better than the other way around.
Yeah.
Unless you're selling them in this male cell. But for me, I'd much rather have females because
same here.
The
main
great males, and I'll keep them busy.
I had to get it
For
back
the local
up
fish store, though.
76, 77, so that I got a little closer to equal.
Locally, we don't have a good fish nerd group, so it's more so random people. They want the colors.
Yeah.
So usually I just sell males.
What type of angelfish do you breed, Jeff?
Um, was marbles, blacks, and just the standard zebras. I started getting into the like pearl scale blues and blue marbles and stuff like that too now.
What have you ever seen any, or have you ever worked with the super veils? Are they still around?
Not that I'm aware of. I do have some veils that potentially, when they grow up, might be in that realm, but they're black. But their veils currently at the size that they are now. I mean, I think if I had a tall enough tank for it, that could be a good like 12+ inch tall fish.
Really?
It looks like it's got the potential.
The hobbyist in me has always wanted to return to. I used to have black super veils many years ago, and the hobbyist in me has wanted to always get a couple pair and just have a tank for myself going of them, And so I've always been looking around to find out who has genuinely really good stock. I've seen some of the blue Filipino high veils, and they can be spectacular,
No, when I got back into breeding, I chatted with the local store and made arrangements to sell her fish, and asked her how many angels she wanted before I had spawned them even, and she said as many as I can make for her. My initial spawn was 1,000 easy, and they all lived.
Wow!
And I told her I had a batch of this going, and I pulled another couple more batches, and I was expecting to lose at least half of that first batch, and I ended up losing nothing. I was, and there was no culls because it was a crossbreed, so it was a marble with a zebra. So the genetics weren't all jacked up, and they all came out really good. Then I got stuck with like 3,000 fish for a while that I was growing out and trying not to stunt. And, it took me a long time to move them. Eventually, she started giving out my phone number for people looking to buy them in bulk to sell them at other, events down south. So I ended up basically wholesaling them to people taking them down to swaps to sell. Because there's no way I could make it to them, at least not at the time.
Do you have a website going with pictures of your fish?
I started something. I have a website, but I don't utilize it. And I started kind of doing stuff on Aquafinder, but it's more just a YouTube channel. I sell local, and I'll occasionally do like a stock, like a video just for stock, and then I'll make that private and send it to the pet store. And then he'll let me know what he wants, take him in.
Geek Boy says he's been giving out your phone number to everybody.
It is public, but yeah. Yeah, I don't really list them much, I guess, right now. I know that I'm intending to sell wholesale to Tropical Fish Go, but when I do that, I'd prefer to just drive them down there, make a long weekend of it.
Do you ship?
I do ship, yeah, but I'd prefer whole or in bulk like that. I don't want to ship that. I've looked into it, and it did not make sense.
Yeah.
I was looking at sending 300 to California, and that was going to be like $600 just in shipping.
Yeah,
that's not realistic for angelfish. Not, I mean, they're a $5 fish retail. At least those batch were. I mean, if you're getting into red devils or something high end, if you're looking at like a $25 to $50 fish, that's a little different.
but then you also have to remember the time, money you have to invest in those larger fish to grow them out to the sellable size.
Well, no, you can sell some smaller ones. At least at the time, you could sell them for $25. But yeah, I've shipped adult angelfish, and that sucks. It's very stressful.
Yeah, I officially get rid of the last of my cichlids next week.
Yeah.
I love cichlids, but cichlids did. So when you're breeding and have a business and you're working with I was working with some really cool species of cichlids. They weren't selling for me. Goodeids were, and I prefer working with the goodeids. So for me, but like, I don't know about your areas. My area is just influxed with African cichlids, and I have a beautiful breeding colony of blue dolphins, and I always wanted blue dolphins, and like I'm at the point with them, I just let them spawn. I don't even try to take the eggs out, or because it was just very hard for me to place them. So the last of my cichlids are going out this weekend. It's opening up a big 90-gallon tank for some of my trout goodeids that are getting larger and getting a little older, and that's kind of they're going to be their retirement home. But that's a lot of it too. Some people can't keep cichlids. Everyone buys them up. Cichlids never moved for me from a business standpoint. So I can appreciate when someone's doing well with cichlids and stuff. And I'm not just saying this. I really appreciate what you're doing with angels, because you're breeding some quality angels. Because there's a lot of people, they focus on number, they don't focus on quality. You're doing quality.
I have some goals. With the angels. But so I shoot for angels that will raise their own fry to a point at least. And when they get down to about 50 to 25 fry, that's when I start pulling them. Because they usually do culling really well for me at that point. Even like around 100, I think I could probably pull them and still have almost 100% good fry. But so far, it's worked out for me to let the parents cull them, and then just grow out what's left. And then I don't have to deal with the culling and get a strong, healthy fish. Chevy fish, I did look into that, but so far the fish I'm working with, it didn't financially make sense.
Back to what you were saying earlier, Ed, I think areas go through cycles and what they're interested in.
Yes, sir.
So in the Atlanta area, years ago, we used to be a big like angelfish, African cichlid area. Nowadays, we're more of a catfish and fancy guppy kind of area. So it just moves through different cycles.
Right.
I guess right now you're in a non-cichlid phase of your area.
And like for me, with what I do, like what I'm doing here is not popular in my area. But I for me, it's just my opinion. I have a bigger, better purpose for why I'm working with the fish I am than, yes, I am a business, but I found such a love and appreciation for these fish, and the fact that I ship helps me a great deal. But if I didn't ship, I wouldn't last a year, because most people around here are looking for the more extravagant colors and things like that. So, my goal, when I learned shipping would be my best option, and I've shipped before, but rarely, there are not too many people in my area that really appreciate what I do. So yeah, I totally get it. It's an area, it's what's available. They're seeing what's available at the stores and what they're seeing as a norm. So yeah, I've seen that definitely. But like, it seems like African cichlids were a thing, and I really like dwarf Tanganyikans. One time I had probably, and I'm not exaggerating, if I didn't have 500 multifasciatus, I didn't have one. And then it was just like, you got to move these. So yeah, cichlids just haven't done well for me here. I can breed them, they do well for me, and that they just, from a standpoint, for lack of, I hate to say this, but as from a business standpoint, because I am a business, it just wasn't something I could do well here. So my people like working with them, and they just weren't moving for me. So yeah, I'm ready to move on. I'm going to miss the dolphins, but it's there. I'm just allowing them to cull their babies, and they're beautiful fish, and I just want someone else to be able to enjoy them and pass more into the hobby for them. My one male in the colony is about 10 inches long now. They're big boys, and they're going into a 240. So, but yeah, I always appreciate when people are breeding angels. That's one species I've never been able to breed, and I've tried numerous things, and I'm finally like, maybe someday. But I need so much room for what I'm doing right now with the goodeids, especially with the crocodons, that I need the space. So the last of the cichlids are going this week. I'm kind of bummed, but I'm also ready to move on from them. So
angels were the first thing that got me into breeding.
Yeah.
And then, like Jeff was saying, when you get fairly good at it, where do you put thousands of fish.
Mm,
And I eventually got out of them because I just didn't have enough. I had too many interests in other things too, and I didn't have enough room
Right.
for that many angelfish.
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
think
Well,
that it's
that's why I've been doing it the way that I am, is letting the cull or parents cull, and then I get a reasonable amount to work with.
well, when I used to work at stores in this area to help out, people would come in breeding angels and they would bring hundreds of them. Well, when you're looking, you'd see dorsals bent and stuff like that because they're not getting the space they need. So culling, and I like the way you do it because that's how over time you're going to maintain and get a really good body structure. It's not numbers. Angels need a lot of room to grow out. And if you're not providing that, that's where you get those bent or dorsals and things like that. So yeah, I like the way you're doing it. Plus, you're also encouraging the parents to maintain the fry. And I personally feel that because people for so long have pulled the eggs because they want numbers, that these animals over time, it's become a behavioral rift where they don't know what to do with the eggs.
Yeah, but by doing that, they also coddle the weak.
Mhm.
So things that shouldn't have survived end up surviving.
Exactly.
And I mean, the parents can sense the weak, so
Yep.
they just
Absolutely.
don't waste a resource.
Mhm.
Well, we've touched on shipping. As I know that was one of the things you mentioned earlier you wanted to discuss.
Yep.
I'm real concerned about where shipping is going. USPS said they're going to raise rates to 7% next month, and most people already consider them to be extremely high. And in Denver, where I am, I have not shipped an overnight box. It's arrived overnight now in almost a year. Well, actually, over a year. Every single box hasn't arrived. So they're going through some problems. I'm really wondering what's going to happen with the hobby. I did have some people. I was in Atlanta just recently, and I'm sorry, not Atlanta. I was in Atlanta, but I was also in Georgia recently, and I had someone that mentioned a place for me, another one of the discount places that I'm going to look into for the spring and see if maybe I can find a way to hook onto one of these services. But I've been with a couple of them in the past, and it's been a problem. Maybe this time now they've got the wrinkles ironed out. We'll see. Some of the places they'll ship to certain parts of the country, or when boxes don't arrive late, you can't get a refund, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
So have you looked into like Shippo or
Pirate
Ship
Ship
Pirate? Yeah, Pirate Ship.
Pirate, yeah. This is called Morph Market. So I had looked at the shipping of
that-
fish.
That's different. So
It is.
Morph Market
Distance-
is like a selling place.
Yeah, but you
No.
can use their shipping there.
You can use
Yep,
their
you-
shipping. I've used it a couple times years
Yep.
ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you guys have had good experience with them?
I did.
Ooh. I haven't used them yet myself, not Morph Market. I just know they exist.
Because right now, I mean, to ship 2 pair of fish for $100 that cost, $30 or $35 a pair, that's really tough for a lot of hobbyists,
Mhm.
Well,
And,
if you use something like Pirate Ship, then you can ship UPS or FedEx. You can ship that box for $50 overnight or less.
Not necessarily.
It
The last
depends
ones I
on the
did were
region.
Well, sure. Yeah.
last ones I did were
UPS
80.
Here's 170.
Oh, but
But,
are you going through one of the consolidators?
No.
Yeah,
I did.
They will knock 70% or more off of
Yeah.
anybody's shipping cost.
Yep, and mine was knocked off. I mean, it was just a 5-pound box. So overnight, 5 pounds for the size it was, that's $80, even discounted.
Well, right, but a 5-pound box, you won't need a 5-pound box for 2 pairs of fish.
Not for 2 pairs.
Right.
No.
Yeah, normally for 2 pairs, I run 2 to 3 pounds, and then for my bigger box, I run about 6 to 7 pounds. So, but anyway, I'm looking into it and I'm working on it. But yeah, for right now, anybody's getting into it, you got to think a little bit and got to look around a little bit.
I've decided I'm using USPS, and the reason I'm using it is because I no longer ship to people's doors and require a signature because the things that have happened over the last few years. So with that now, and another reason too, Greg, you've been to my house.
Mhm.
It's pretty rural, and I don't have access to a UPS where I can just drop it off at a UPS.
Right.
So that's who I have to use. But what I have done, I've had great success. I know everyone can have horror stories, but I've had great success using what I do. And I think part of it is today is because I put right on the box, hold for pickup. And a lot of times they're not required to, because I let the people know that, hey, your box is waiting for you.
Right.
But people are like, why don't you ship any more to doors? Because for me, I had a few years ago, I shipped 4 pairs of Cracodons to someone. And she was supposed to be having that day. She got called into work. It's not her fault. Things happen. It was in California, and it was the hottest time of the year. And these fish sat outside all day. And when she came home, the fish were all dead.
Okay, Ed, really quickly, how often when you do hold for pickup does it get held for pickup?
So here's what I'm doing now. I put on that they have to sign for it. So by signing for it, they cannot deliver it unless it's in someone's hands.
That is not true with USPS.
I've been working that for 3 years, and I've had not one problem.
I lump shippers in the same category as phone providers. Everyone has the thing that works for them,
right?
And everybody else is awful. So you've had great experience with the USPS.
That's why I'm fine.
I've had awful experience because I'll have USPS that will drop something off at my house that requires a signature without anything. And me being here, I just didn't get to the door in time,
right.
And they left without actually signing it. But it required a signature. So it all depends on like what works for you.
Yeah, but one of the things to remember with that is when it's required a signature and someone has dropped it off, whether you've paid for the insurance or not, that is something that you can acquire your money back on that because they logged this up. But yeah, so and that's what I said. And I said at the beginning, some things work for some works for others. I totally get that. That's just because of the limited service I have in my area and what I have found works for me.
Well, I'm totally for USPS. I mean, I've been shipping only USPS for 17 years. I only shipped hold for pickup until April 1st when they told me they discontinued the service. And I can no longer ship hold for pickup anywhere. So now they've reintroduced it slowly, and so I only have a small percentage. So if I put hold for pickup on a box, most of them just go ahead and ship it on, just deliver it on through. If they pick it up at the post office, they have to get a signature. But if it goes to the house, then they have to get a signature because I always require a signature.
Well, that's the difference. So I pay $5 to have a signature. So that's just another piece of insurance. So if the Postal Service drops it off at someone's house without a signature, although I do insurance, it's still, even if I didn't have insurance, it would be covered because they didn't follow the service.
Well, another thing to keep in mind is the Postal Service insurance does not cover live fish. I've tried. They don't do it. They don't do it. Live fish is not something they won't cover it. So whenever you pay money for insurance to cover live fish, if ever you do actually have a claim, they'll just tell you to go home. Because that's not, I mean, jewelry is one thing where you can show a receipt and it doesn't die. Fish, they won't do. At least that's what I've been told. And that's, I've tried it a couple times.
I'm not discrediting you, but I did a claim a few years ago and didn't have any problem, and they knew what it was. Certainly not discrediting you, Greg.
No. I'm just saying that policies may have changed, but it's not as sure.
They're always changing. We know that they're always.
I think
changing.
It's more that it's variable their interpretation of it. Who you get interprets things differently.
Exactly.
Because like with Ed, I have made a claim with USPS before for live fish, and they went through. It was no problem on it. Well, other than the fact that you have to fight with making a claim, but they did actually successfully get through it.
Right.
But like I think it's
locale plays a difference in it too.
Okay, yeah, it's like just when the stars cross, it happens differently depending on who and where you're talking to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just what seems to work for me. And I totally there's people, why would you ship? Because I personally have had good success. I understand a lot of people haven't, but that's just what works for me. And in the last 2 years, I've maybe only had one DOA, and I've shipped out quite a few boxes. And it's like you said, a lot of people, if they want these fish, but for some of the for what it costs for some of them, and I found something that works for me, that people can get these fish at a fairly affordable way. And because I ship in breather bags, I don't have to worry. Like, we all know that they can live in breather bags for a few more days other than in poly, and it's just worked for me. Because I'm so limited here. Like, what's interesting is 2 miles down the road is a hub for UPS, but I can't drop off any live animals there. So that's why I don't use them. And I had a bad experience with FedEx, so I just choose not to. So it sounds crazy, but for me, USPS does work. But I can appreciate.
The big reason I don't use UPS or FedEx, and I've had contracts with both of them, neither of them was a savings on USPS. They were still cheapest. But with UPS and FedEx, they needed their boxes, at least where I am, by 11 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly.
UPS was 10 in the morning. I'd have to be up at 3 in the morning if I'm shipping 5 boxes of fish out.
Yeah.
So, whereas USPS, I have till 5 o'clock to get it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get started at 7 in the morning, and we're ready to go. By 3 o'clock, I get it to the post office.
No matter who it is that I'm shipping with, it has to be there by about 7 o'clock in the morning. So I have to box the day before, no matter what.
Yeah, like in my case, I do UPS. When I don't ship much because shipping sucks. But when I do ship, I do UPS because in my case, I can get it there by 5 p.m. and it'll go out that same day. And if I use Pirate Ship is the one I use, I can generally get a cheaper price than I can get for USPS for shipping.
Yeah. See, now if I didn't work for a living and I was retired or did the fish thing for a living, I could drop off at the UPS drop off up till 4 o'clock and get it out same day and still have it overnighted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the fortunate one. If I get it there by 2 p.m., it goes out that very day. I've dropped off boxes on a Monday morning, and a lot of people, especially on the East Coast, have it the very next day. So it was pretty stable this year. There's a few areas that I have issues with, but it's usually only a day later. But one of the things I try to do, and I tend to go a little. I want to keep people informed. I keep track of their boxes, and every morning I email, "Hey, this is where it is. This is where you."
I do the same thing. Yeah.
Because what I have found is a lot of people like, "Oh, it's going to be here on this date," and they don't pay attention to the tracking. And let's be honest, anything can happen at any given time. So one of the things I do is I keep them informed, so it calms that anxiety. And with the fish being in breather bags, I tell them you've got a really good chance. Someone would have to really shake the hell out of that box, or some extreme heat situation for them to happen. So I've had real good success with that. That's something I've learned from Greg. Is when I first ordered from Greg, he walked me all the way from the moment I purchased to the time they arrived in my tank. And even after they were in my tank, he helped me. And I think that's what it is. It's got to be, you've got to be there, got to make yourself available. Like, hey, this is what's going. And it takes up a little time during my morning, but it's something that I found works for me. And I think that's the reason why I've continued to get a lot of people that come back to me. So but trust me, it's not like I came up with this idea overnight. This is what I've done since I moved here 4 years ago, and have built it to what works for me at this time. But I'll absolutely agree. It depends on the region you live in. It depends on the types of people that are purchasing from you and stuff, because there's so many variables. And then you just try to find the one that works best for you. I have a friend.
If you pay $90 to me to ship something overnight, you'll never get it within overnight.
Right.
It's
It's
1 to 3 days later.
generally 2 to 3 days. Yeah.
So when I prep my fish to ship, I always prep them as if they're going to be in that bag for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's the way you should.
Even if they're going to be in there overnight or 2 nights or whatever. But
Yep.
you never know.
And
Like,
the
I
younger
had
they
a-
are, the bigger they ship.
Yeah.
The younger they are, the
I
bigger
did.
they ship. Yeah.
100%. Well, to within reason.
Within reason, right.
There's a point where they just can't have enough in their intestines to make it. But I had a shipping snafu with Mexicali. I shipped out a box, USPS, and he left the same day I dropped it off. And he was going from, almost the California border to Texas to hang out with his kids and then back. And I think it sat on his porch for 6 hours or something like that at 114 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
His friend picked up the box as soon as he could, and not a loss.
Wow, good.
And then I told him as long as everything was still swimming, just leave him alone. Let him come down to room temp, and then just unbag them when you get there a couple days later.
See, now if they were Gudeids, just about any type of Gudeids, they might be healthy, but they'll never breed for you again.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, they were bristle nose and Corys and stuff like that. So, they could hit 90, but not like it, but they could hit it as long as there's enough oxygen in the bag.
Yeah. And a lot of it's what organic, the waste they're producing out. But where a lot of people make the mistake, people are like, "Oh, I've purged them out for a day or two. There's not going to be any ammonia in the tank." Respiration creates ammonia. So that's the thing. So like for me, I've just found, and what's works best for me, I use breather bags because you always have that exchange of gas and oxygen, and Gudeids need higher oxygen, and I found that's what works for me. And it's funny because I have boxes of poly bags that I hardly ever use, because with Gudeids, when those temperatures rise and that oxygen level depletes, that puts them in a high level of stress. So I find, but doing the breather bags just works best for me. So, but I don't have any, like, I'm not shipping Corys or I'm not shipping fish that have sharp rays. So all the Gudeids have soft rays. So you can do that type of stuff with them. But yeah, that's impressive that your Corys went how high? 114 or something?
There's 114 on the porch, but I'm sure the inside of the box didn't. I mean,
right.
I super insulated it, knowing I was shipping in the summer to is it
Yuma, Arizona?
Arizona.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I did as much prep work as I could to keep them as reasonably stable as possible. And stable was my goal. So slow incline, slow decline.
Yeah. Well, that's like Greg kind of touched base on this. So I'm gonna open the door wide open for it. That's one of the things with Gudeids and you're welcome to jump in on this too, Greg. Many of you may know that we spend a lot of time working with Gudeids, and there's always this ongoing question: what's the temperature for Gudeids? What's the temperature for Gudeids? Over the last few years, what we have found, and I've had this confirmed with Aqualab and Jalisco. So what they have found in Mexico at Morelia is, for a short time in their summer, the water temperature goes up. What they have found happens, they're not producing babies at that time. And they're thinking there's a correlation with the dissolved oxygen in the water and all of that, and the fry not being able to hold. So one of the things, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, you said you have some that were given to you that someone had trouble, Iliodon furcidens, that they couldn't get to spawn. Did I hear you correctly? You have them there and they've never worked spawn for you. So we feel that it sterilizes them in some way because they don't produce after that.
I know for a fact that they become sterilized when they were exposed to temperatures usually above 82 degrees or more. Before I started selecting aquatics, I used to have the alcove area. I just kind of, in my way with local fish keepers, set up what I call a little conservation area. If you had Gudeids that you'd ever cooked and didn't spawn for you, I would go ahead and take them, and if they spawned, great. And I had populations of crocodons and scyphias and tequilas for up to 2 years and never got a single spawn out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they've been cooked and heated to that temperature, they stop breeding. Now, I won't go into this because it starts. I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but there is a wholesaler or a retailer that sells Gudeids, and he keeps them at a really warm temperature. He keeps them at 79 degrees. So everybody who was buying fish from him was writing me saying, "I've had the fish for a year and a half."
Same here.
They're not spawning. What am I doing wrong? I talked to the fish keeper. I went to his facility and all this kind of stuff, and he's keeping them at 80 degrees. And that's why, he's having so many going out that aren't spawning. Well, one customer finally got them to spawn. And what he did was in October, about early October, he went ahead and ran them through a hibernation and brought the temperature down to about 60 degrees, 62 degrees, and kept it there into January, and then gradually brought him out of it. Really forced, really heavy-duty hibernation, and that got him to spawn the next spring. But most of the people who got them from this guy, they've been kept to the warm temperatures and put them in their home tanks and kept them forever, didn't get any spawns out of them. So we're talking as to whether or not, he may have somehow got them back on track. And it may have just been a case of it working with the two, with the pair that he had. But yeah, you don't want to keep them cold or let them get cold. But yeah, no, I've had that, and it's different with each species. Mica splendens, both the Xenotocas, the lion's eye, and the Adodri are fine. They can handle the warmer temperatures. The Tauri are even called the warm water Goodea. They can handle up to 78, 79 degrees for longer periods of time. But my tequilas, you keep them more above 75, they're going to stop spawning for you. Most of the crocodons are that way. I lost Audax, man, just, having them hit 80, they just can't handle those kind of temperatures.
Yeah.
So.
I had purchased some Chuck Goodyeads that were supposed to be one of your lines at one point. I don't believe that it was. Or at least it wasn't handled properly if it was. But I kept them hot also and ended up moving them on at some point. They also weren't for the way I was keeping them at the time, they weren't a good fish for me, or they weren't a good fit. They were just too rambunctious for any kind of a community tank, for me at least.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're very high oxygenation. They eat a lot. They're
very fast, and they want to keep going.
Yeah.
And they get big. People don't realize. So I have some trial Goodea downstairs now that are pushing close to 5 inches.
Yeah, I do too. And I discovered I had the crocodids in some of my plico tanks as dither fish, and I found out they were eating as much of the green beans as the plicos were. So now I feed the crocodids
best food for them.
Handfuls of green beans along with everything else I get, and I'm producing some huge fish. Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you guys had mentioned community tanks, because I noticed when Mike put out the questionnaire for everyone, one person asked, "How do you feel about these?" Kind of ties in with what Greg and I do about
keeping in a community tank.
So I personally am not a fan of for community tanks with Goodeids, but I'll explain why. A lot of the fish that I work with are highly critical, like crocodons. Crocodons only have up to maybe 10, maybe a few more fry. So if they're in a community environment, that's just more access for more fish to eat fry. So one of the things with critically endangered fish, it's not just producing a quality. You do have to pay mind to the numbers too. So if you're putting them in a variant where all the fry have the big opportunity of being eaten, that kind of is a bad thing. So, but I have the space here. I have almost 100 aquariums working right now. At any given time, I can go up to 110, and it works like fluid with me. Like I may go down to 80 sometimes, but I have the space, and I realize a lot of people don't have that opportunity where they can do species only. There are some species of Goodeids, in my opinion, I definitely wouldn't do in the community, and crocodons are one of them. I think you could probably get away with Mica splendens and stuff, but one of the things with critically endangered fish, and that's Goodeids or whatever, putting them in a community setting for me, I think is a little bit more of a variable that works against the conservation method, because there's more of a variable for those fry to be eaten. There's people that do it. It's just my opinion.
Well, also the Goodeids that are easiest to keep that do well in a community tank are the last fish you want to put in a community tank. Mica splendens are bitchy. They're fin nippers. The bull xenotogas are the same way. You don't want them around. They're fin nippers, and Whereas your well-behaved, really nice, quiet and fish like the tequilas and are your more fragile Goodeids you don't want to have around other community fish because they'll pick on them. So, yeah. I've seen Tauri chase my Synodontis catfish, a group of Tauri going after the catfish and chase them into a pot where the guy's digging soil to get into the pot to get away from them. It's like you say, they're active and
Yeah.
My robustness, I have never seen a Goodeids so aggressive as those guys.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even consider putting anything else in with them because, you know, so a lot of it depends. There's always, you know, exemptions to, but I've just not done most of that.
For the most part, all my community tanks since I've gotten back into fish keeping have been staging tanks or grow-outs, and that's it. Then when I decide I want to spawn them, they go into an individualized tank. Goodeids and live bears, if they're endangered, I get not wanting those in any kind of community tank ever. Because I mean, it kind of defeats your purpose.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry.
People don't mix Goodeids either because the females look alike in a lot of cases.
They all look alike. Yeah, you're not going to know what they.
Yeah, like mixing a bunch of killifish together.
Yeah.
Or rainbows.
Yeah. And it happens regularly too.
Yeah. They won't cross. The Goodeids won't cross. You won't get hybrids.
Okay.
You've got fish from different genera together. Splendens will never cross with a tequila, that sort of thing. But the females can still look at. I mean, it's really tough sometimes to look at a Doedre female and a tequila female and try to tell them apart. They can grow to where they look quite similar to one another.
Mountaintop Puffer Keeper's got an interesting statement there. He's been shipping puffers in breather bags and hasn't had a problem with it yet.
Can you still get the buffers? You talking about the little things you would float in a breather bag to?
No, the puffer, like a puffer fish.
Oh, puffers.
Yeah.
Like beef puffer or something.
Don't know about puffers.
Yeah, he's been spawning some puffers. That's his passion, is working with puffer fish.
I mean, is there a question about? I mean, they should do fine in breather bags.
No, he has shipped them in breather bags. The beak is where I would have a concern personally of them biting through the bag.
Yeah, it could be done, but if they get stressed out, I'd be afraid of that.
Well, if you go with younger fish,
they're less
beak
likely.
won't be strong enough really to cut through a breather bag. I do have the plecos. I wouldn't ship a pleco over about 1.5 inches in a breather bag because they'll puncture it. But lower than that, the spines are too soft and.
Yeah.
Realistically, I don't think I like shipping a pleco over 2 inches. It gets kind of hairy.
Yeah, that's why I love what I do, because most of the fish, when I'm shipping them, they're at 3/4 inch to 1 inch, and it's easy to ship. I'm terrified to ship large fish. I know it can be done, but I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah. Well, you're shipping a lot of water to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't mind it as long as people understand. You know, if they don't understand that, I won't even bother talking to them about it.
Yeah.
Because there's no point if the fish doesn't get there alive. So, I mean, why waste everybody's money and time and the life?
Exactly.
I had a guy yesterday write me to send him a box of fish. It's like, wow, why are So what I do, I was going to mention this to you, Ed. I've done this every year now for the last 10, 12 years. Is that when I don't ship it with temperatures are below 35 degrees here in a destination. Mm-hmm. And then, let's say this time of year, someone writes me, they want to buy fish. The earliest I've ever shipped fish in the spring is the third week of January. So what I do is I take their orders, I write them up on the boards behind me, and then the third week of January, I send a temperature check to every customer waiting on an order. And I say, temperature your place is this, temperature my place is this. Next week doesn't have a date we can ship. I'll rate you every weekend, and as soon as we get a date we can ship, we can ship. So every weekend I write everybody, and I say, hey, temperatures are not good yet, and then when the temperatures get good, it's like, hey, Tuesday works for you, does it work for me? And say yes, and then I go ahead and I ship. And sometimes I'll have as many as 20 orders backed up going into a new season. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got about 11 built up. And so I'll start writing them in January, the third week of January, and set up a date as soon as. And I warn them it could be March 1st before you get your box. Yeah. Please don't pay me. I'll send you a quote, tell you how much it's going to be, but please don't pay me because I don't want to hold on to your money until then.
I'm just the lazy one. I tell people I don't start shipping again till about the second week of April, and I stopped the last week of October because of the holidays, and it's just made it a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
But even when you put that big banner, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, you'll put that big banner on your website, on the last date. Oh, are you still shipping? No, and I don't know how much bigger to make it, and I don't want it to be something obnoxious or disrespectful. But I still get. But I personally am not comfortable shipping.
I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose customers.
Yeah.
I started listing fish on Aquabid, and I just list them as out of stock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Greg, there's a question here.
Yeah.
About the catfish that you was just talking about, or are they the ones that you talk about that only spawn with a full moon?
Those that were chasing the tower around, yes, or that the tower were chasing them around, yes. Those were the Synodontis lucipennis. And yes, I know there's a paper that just came out that says they're genetically identical to the petricola, but those who have worked with both species now they are different. They're not. I'm not yet to the point where I agree with fish.
It's like collection points on plecos.
It's like what?
A collection point on a pleco. You get different color patterns, and they get a different L number because it's a different collection point.
Oh, okay.
Technically, some of them are genetically the same, but like above one waterfall, it'll be one color. Below the waterfall, it's another color.
Yeah, the Audax is that way. Yeah,
that's what they're doing now, and I'm still on the fence with that one.
As long as they keep a differential, like if they keep like a different L number as an example, and it's differentiated a little bit, and you can regulate that within the hobby even. Because the pleco people are crazy.
You think?
But these are the Synodontis, the petricola, but it still may be collection point and the lucipennis.
I don't know, Jeff. Some of them Corey guys can be a little crazy.
Yeah, but they're just right, so it's okay.
There was a guy out of Florida that was breeding the petricolas, and he was crossing them and coming up with another line. I forget what his name is.
Bioaquatics.
Yeah, he's out of it now. And to my knowledge, the line's getting dropped. They were a cool fish.
Yeah.
As long as they were sold under that pretense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was also the guy that was able to breed clown loaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name. I talked to him before, but I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I chatted with Alex from Fishery. He's supposed to get him on his channel. He lives in Japan now. So
yeah, I want to say he's from Europe somewhere though originally.
He's not sure where he's from originally, but I know that he had a farm in Florida.
Yeah, and he got hit by a hurricane.
Yep, and now he's sold. And he moved on to Japan.
Look at this comment. We know
Rainbow people are only normal people. I don't know about that.
Yeah. I don't know, Steven. I think we're all a little loopy. We all have. I mean, seriously, we look at it this way. One thing we all share: people who are not in this hobby and they see how we bust out the seams talking about it, they look at us like we're nuts. So I think we're all together. We just have different avenues for it, but we're all. People think I'm a little because of my desire and passion for what I do, but that's the one thing we all do, and people look at as crazy. So it doesn't really matter what you do. It's the same with anything you work in that you're passionate in. People will always look at you like you're crazy.
Well, it's a shame that the poor goldfish people aren't part of this, but the goldfish just breed so differently than anything else. That I've talked to so many people who say that that goldfish and the fish we deal with are such night and day that you don't see a lot of mix. I mean, I would love to hear about tropical fish people that bred goldfish as well as the tropical fish. But I've met more people like us that breed orchids, that raise orchids and breed dart frogs than breed goldfish. So
I spawned Blackmores.
That was the original question that they had way back in the chat: is any of you ever bred goldfish? And it was just like, look at me.
I used to. I used to, when I had my farm years ago, I had the space for it. I found I was more successful because I had a lot of space. Although I have some space here, to run a really good program for goldfish, you need to have a lot of room, especially if you're working with certain varieties. But I had great success. I did a lot of different fantails. Years ago, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and I had my own store, I brought in some Nishiki koi koi and was spawning those successfully till a couple cranes got on my farm and ended up killing everything.
Yeah, the plant people, yeah, they are the craziest.
Yeah. They got like 10 names for one plant.
Yeah, they buy like $1,000 CO2 systems.
Yeah. I have a CO2 system. They're not that bad.
$2,000 lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't spend that much.
Me neither.
Uh,
I use Home Depot light hoods with LED house bulbs, man. Daylight spectrum.
I've been doing. I started doing LED shop lights with. What's it called? A G Home dimmer smart switch.
Oh,
So
I'm
it's
still
just
using
a
metal
light
halide.
switch that you can control digitally.
you can turn them up and down. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I need. The ones I'm using right now, I don't have a dimmer for it.
I'm still running metal halide on a couple.
Oh my God.
It's expensive, dude.
Heat.
Next
heat
time
and
next
expensive.
time I'm there, we're going to go out, set our lawn chair, and watch his electric meter spin.
And a good heater.
I can only
Yeah.
imagine, because I know what my electric bill average is a month for what I can imagine.
Do they heat
So
your
you get
room?
that. Yeah, you flip on that metal halide in the summer, and then you flip on the air conditioner to combat it.
Sometimes.
I had mine in a hood, and I flipped it up one time, and I just came home from work with a button-down shirt, and I'm cleaning the glass and everything. I'm all done, and it's like the next day, it's like, man,
Sunburn.
I was sunburned by that.
Yeah.
Bright red. It's like, yeah, not
UV
doing that.
burn.
Not doing that again.
Biggest purchase I've had to do for my fish room was last year was the generator. And the reason why my area, the first year we moved here, a tornado touched down a few miles away, and I didn't have electricity for 6 days. And I was freaking in my fish room, and I said, I never want to deal with that again. So
I just got my generator delivered 2 days ago after being tuned up, getting ready for this winter.
yeah. And because it's like when you invest this much time, money, and energy into maintaining these bloodlines, it's like, I don't want to take that risk. I don't want to experience what I experienced a few years ago ever again. I was very fortunate because at the time my tanks weren't heavily stocked. So I only lost 2 fish out of the whole fish room during that 6 days. So we went out and just bought a generator and stuff, and now we don't have to worry about it. Plus, another thing with it was like August in the heat, and no electricity means no air conditioning. And for those of you who may not notice, I'm a little fluffy, so hot heat doesn't do well for me. So it was like, we're doing air conditioning, and so we got the generator, and that was probably the biggest expense. But I also think it was a necessary expense, because if you just look cross-eyed where I live, you can lose your electricity in no time. So it was just something, It was a necessity for me to buy. And that was probably one of the biggest expenses for the whole fish room. So
there's only one section of power line that's still above ground for me. And last winter, it got taken out by ice. So it was without power for 36 hours, and it was below zero. So the house went down to, I think, like 40s. Managed to keep the fish room at about 60 for the upper tanks, at least. No immediate losses, but I did have slow losses after the fact. And I had German Ram fry that did fine through it, and I'm still growing them out. But I did lose all my all but one Vulcan Cory, which really irritated me. But
Oh yeah, they're only a couple $100 a piece. You're all right.
well, they were Dan's prices, so
Yeah.
or more than that.
No, I
They were
bought a generator
more than a used car.
as soon as I could. bought a bunch of space heaters, cheap, big, the dish space heaters, and got them stacked up. And the generator will run the blower, and it will run all the space heaters, and that'll keep the air going and keep the room warm. That's all that matters.
All I need is the heat. Everything else will sustain itself. I just need the heat.
Yeah.
I think I could probably pull off 72 hours without power if I don't lose the heat.
Well, that's like with air pumps. I know, Greg, I know you run a big blower.
Mhm.
Everybody else is running, I'm running my fish room on, believe it or not, an old Silent Giant air pump.
Are you
That's
really?
what you had said.
How many pumps you running on it? I mean,
Just one.
How many filters? On it?
20.
Really, it's handling that many.
15.
Yeah, I was saying,
Okay.
15.
Okay.
And I've got a rebuild kit for it. If it ever goes bad, I can rebuild it.
It's so silent. I was there twice before I even realized that pump was in there.
Really.
I didn't. It was like, where's the pump?
Well, the linear pistons are totally quiet too, and they're awesome. They're great.
Yeah.
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 I do have a
That old
diaphragm pump that's pretty quiet.
Hmm?
That's what it is. It's a diaphragm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the linear pistons are also generally a lower power too. So if you do put them on like a battery backup, like a UPS kind of thing, they'll actually last longer than something that's doing more physical moving, like a blower or something like that.
Right. Yeah,
I've been running Silent Giant since 84.
That,
Don't they have like leather diaphragms?
Mm-hmm.
And they're full of sand. They're silent,
Mhm.
full of sand.
Where did you find it? Well, I guess since you've
I've
had
had
it
it
since
since-
before.
Had it since it's brand new.
Really?
We looked them up one night when we had absolutely nothing to do like normal. And you can still buy them. There's a company that sells Silent Giants.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
And it was what, $80 or $90 for one of
Yeah.
them?
Yep.
Wow.
I almost
They're a
bought
little
one.
bit different.
I almost bought one just so I can sit it on the shelf and it says Silent Giant on it.
before I got
They're a
my
little bit. The
first,
newer ones are a little different, but not much.
Mhm.
before I got my first piston pump, I was running 20 drops off of 2 Whispers and a bazooka, just a big 2-inch piece of PVC that had caps on the end, and then all my spouts off of that, and just use it as like a compressor tank.
Mhm.
Like a holding tank.
I was using 42 Paul Fly for pump. Love my Alita.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I have all these pumps still downstairs. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with these pumps? But I had 42.
Yeah.
I had 42 of them. I'm like, yeah, it's time for the Alita, and so I have that, and it does both of my fish runs now. So
Mitchell, have you ever had the power go off? How long does that APC run? Have you tested that?
I've not had it go out long enough that it didn't actually kick back on before it ran out. So I have been in a fish room that I actually run 2 different linear piston pumps on it, and both of them have survived through a power outage that was a few hours long. But I also have like a generator. I have shelf spares of everything and generator and things like that. But I've been super, super lucky.
Well, they're predicting a big polar vortex coming through about 2/3 of the U.S. starting the second week of December. And they're saying there'll be the coldest temperatures on Earth during the time that it comes through. And it's going to bring lots of snow with it. So that's one of the reasons I ran and got my generator tuned up and ready to go.
yeah,
But they say it's going to hit second week of December. So
I think Jeff's already getting it.
what's that?
Jeff's
I think
already
Jeff's already getting it.
Yeah, you guys are already getting some of it.
how many inches of snow do you guys have already?
I actually don't have that much right now. South of me and north of me both have more. I think I got maybe 5 inches, and
Grant?
they both already had over a foot storm.
Branton told me today they have 16 inches.
Yeah,
Who does?
it's good. South Milwaukee area.
In Milwaukee?
South.
Okay.
Christine, who's in Illinois, posted yesterday she had 18 inches and it was still snowing.
Wow.
Was it? I think it was Wednesday last week. We had to cancel all the northern calls because we couldn't travel. There was power lines across the road and too much snow.
Do you have anything, Ed? Any snow?
Not yet.
We just got- we
We've
got-
been pretty fortunate here. But you've
We
been
had
to my
flurries, yes.
you've been to my place. I'm in a valley, so a few miles away there can be snow on the ground and there's nothing at my place. It's really weird. It's like a micro climate kind of thing but
Yeah.
we're getting cold air. It's only a matter of time. So
Yeah, we just got a dusting. It's almost gone.
yeah.
We've had flurries, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So,
You
Mike, was
definitely
there another
scared
topic that people wanted us to get to?
Well, the only other one we really got, and I think we've pretty well covered most of them, is like when you're prepping fish to start breeding, what are you using to do it? Live food, flake food.
Anything will eat frozen brine shrimp. Many things like live worms, black worms, bloodworms, even frozen. I use those are the things I use to get stuff going. When it comes time to breed, like my Odessas, they go on to some brine shrimp at least once a day, and then I'll boost their dry feedings, and then wait till I start seeing really big females. But yeah, you got to prep. You got to prep. I used to think you didn't have to prep if they were healthy and all that. No, over time I've learned you got to prep them and get them full of eggs, and then you'll have good luck. But yeah, you got to do something.
What about you, Mitchell?
Very much depends on the fish. But yeah, upping live food or at least frozen foods, live foods if you can get them. And then there's other things like some things want tannins in the water. Like you might not keep tannins in the water most of the time, but you want to trigger some fish, you start throwing in like oak leaves and alder cones and things like that. It just depends on the species as what you're trying to do as to how you need to handle prepping them. Most of the stuff I do, I don't actually need to like separate sexes to build them up, but I assume with some of the stuff that like you guys do for like Odessa barbs, you might actually want to separate them so you can bulk the females up without them getting harassed too much by the males.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And a good 10 days, about 10 days to 2 weeks, I think it takes. You're not going to do it in 2 or 3 days.
Mm-mm.
No. Definitely not. Guys, we gone about 2 hours.
Again?
I think we've covered pretty much most of the subjects, unless somebody's got something else.
No, I just want to say anybody else has in the chat that has subjects to bring up, send them to me or Mike or to Jeff, and
Yep.
we'll start making a list and passing it around.
Yep. You guys feel up to doing another part 3?
Sure.
Sure.
You know what my answer will be, buddy.
Well, and Mitchell and Greg and Jeff,
Well, yeah, I enjoy these. What I like about this, there's 6 of us here. We each have our own little thing that we do different, but from us sharing, I'm actually learning things from all of you too. So in my opinion, it's not just benefiting the community; it's benefiting all of us because we're able to share our experiences. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, hopefully we have some really great questions. Ask us if I
Yep.
don't know. Yeah. problems we've had, crazy customers we've had.
Yeah,
Man,
Yeah, definitely.
the craziest shipment you've ever had. Anything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, with that, Mitchell, Ed, Greg, Jeff, and Curtis, thank everybody for coming on. Thank everybody in chat. Stay tuned for part 3.
Thanks for
We'll
joining us.
catch
Jeff.
everybody later.
have a good evening,
Thanks, guys.
folks.
See you guys.